Everyone is recommending the same clean girl fragrances. And look, some of them are genuinely beautiful, but the niche fragrance world has done something much more interesting with this aesthetic, and almost nobody is talking about it. So today, 6 clean girl fragrances from the niche side of perfumery, one luminous for every day, one cosmic crisp, one powdery surprise I did not see coming at all, one Italian hidden gem that I feel like almost nobody knows about, the soapy classic that anchors the whole conversation, and one wildcard that is technically a chypre. And I'm going to make the case for it, why it belongs completely here. Let's start with the one I reach for more than almost anything else when I want to smell effortlessly put together. And if you know, then you know that Parfums de Marly does not do anything by halves. So this is Valaya from Parfums de Marly, and it sits in this beautiful sweet spot between a luminous and genuinely wearable perfume that I keep coming back to again and again. Out of over 400 perfumes at this point I own, this is the one bottle that never collects dust. The Fragrantica community consistently talks about Valaya as one of the most elegant, universally flattering, clean, feminine perfume in the entire PDM lineup. And I think it is completely deserved. However, I know that some may find it a bit sharp or too strong. Now, the notes include aldehydes, bergamot, a beautiful white peach, orange blossom, vetiver, akigaya wood, ambroxan, and musk. And what you get is luminous, soft, but incredibly polished. There is a kind of crisp linen quality to it that feels like expensive sheets in a room full of flowers. It's never heavy, never overdone, just completely and quietly right. I clearly remember putting this one on a completely ordinary Tuesday morning before running errands and feeling so put together just from the fragrance alone. And that is genuinely one of the highest compliments I can give to a perfume. It elevates an ordinary day without asking anything from you. This is your elevated, everyday, all year, but especially spring and early summer fragrance. You know, the one that you will reach for without thinking. And the effortlessness is the whole point of it. Now, moving from that warm, luminous, clean into something that feels a lot more cosmic. I think cosmic is the word I keep coming back to. It's crisp and weightless in a way, and honestly, it surprised me when I first discovered the house. This is Blue Talisman by Ex Nihilo. The Ex Nihilo is a Parisian niche house founded in 2013, and I think this brand is just so criminally underrated. I have been getting into this house more and more and sampling their fragrances, and I have to say, they are really beautiful. Ex nihilo, by the way, means out of nothing in Latin. And there is something so right about that name for this house that creates almost crystalline, weightless scents. So, Blue Talisman is basically their love letter to clean, crisp air, to the feeling of breathing in something cold and perfect. The notes include pear, bergamot, mandarin orange and ginger, orange blossom and Georgie wood, musk, ambrofix, akigaya wood, and cedar. And, and the result is clean and crisp, yet with this almost ethereal quality to it. Like cold air before the rain in the most beautiful way. You know, this will make you feel unlike anything in the mainstream clean fragrance space. I clearly remember smelling the X-rayed version for the first time, which was in fact on camera with you, and it immediately made me smile. Now, the EDP version is slightly lighter and muskier, and I prefer this one right now as it is just perfect for warmer days. Spring and summer especially, for the days when you want to smell like yourself, just lighter and cleaner and somehow more interesting yourself. Okay, two universally flattering, gorgeous, clean fragrances. And now the one I genuinely did not expect to love as much as I do. And I want to be honest with you about that because sometimes the fragrance you think you already know surprises you completely. This is Powder Love by Juliette Has. And I have to be completely honest. When I first heard about this one, I thought, yeah, powdery, musky, probably pleasant, and probably not going to change my life. And I was wrong in the most delightful way. So Juliette Has as a house has done their perfumes always on their own terms. Confident, a little bit unpredictable, and Powder Love is, I think, the most beautifully executed, clean, powdery fragrance they have ever made. The Fragcom received this really warmly on release, and even people who usually run from anything described as powdery were stopping to pay a little bit attention to it. And that tells you everything, I think. The notes include cotton candy, marshmallow, orange blossom, almond, musk, ambroxan, and tonka beans. And what you get is soft and powdery, but yet completely modern. There is no old-fashioned makeup-y dressing table quality here at all. It just feels like the most beautifully scented skin you have ever been. You know, it's warm, it's clean, impossibly soft. You may think that powdery also means heavy or dated. However, I would say that the way Romano Ricci handles the powderiness is genuinely contemporary. It sits in this perfect sweet spot between nostalgia and newness. And the reason why it perfectly fits that clean girl aesthetics is the dry down. There is something fresh, crisp, white shirt or rather fresh linen smelling in it. And combined with the remainder of the powderiness, it is just perfection. Spring or summer, honestly, all year. And the one on the list I think most people will fall immediately and unconditionally in love with. You are very welcome in advance. And before we keep going, drop a comment right now and tell me, are you a powder person or does powder make you run the other way? Because I feel like this is such a divisive thing in the frag comment. I genuinely want to know where you stand. I read every single comment on this channel, so go. So from a 2025 release that surprised me into something a little bit more obscure. Because every good niche list needs a proper discovery moment, and this is mine for today. This is Cristallo Bianco from Fabbrica della Musa. It is an Italian niche house I do not hear nearly enough people talking about, which honestly makes me feel a little bit crazy because this house deserves so much more love than it gets. I only have this small travel size of it, but the full bottle is definitely on my wish list already. So, Fabbrica della Musa translates to the Muse's workshop. And Cristallo Bianco, which means white crystal, is their clean white masterpiece. And here the notes include white florals, white peach, pear, fig, cashmere wood, sandalwood, and vanilla. And what you get is something that genuinely feels like light passing through glass. It's clean and radiant, but yet with all these different facets to it that reveal themselves quietly over time. Every hour you wear it, it feels slightly different, slightly new. You may think that a fragrance you've never heard of from a house you've never heard of is a risk, which is fair. However, I would say the discovery is genuinely the best part of niche perfumery. And this is one of those moments where the discovery is completely worth it. I clearly remember smelling this for the first time and thinking, how is this not everywhere? How is nobody talking about this? There is this quiet, prismatic confidence to it that I find completely irresistible. It never shouts, it just glows. Like white light through a crystal in a very beautiful Italian room that has impeccable taste. A year-round signature scent and your homework assignment for this video. If you find it, please come back and tell me how you liked it. Okay, so we had elevated, cosmic, powdery and prismatic already. And now we go back to the basics. Beautifully, perfectly, and completely basic. Because this next one earns its place on every clean girl list it has ever been done on this planet. And I want to talk about it why. Because sometimes the classic is a classic for a reason. So, this is Bubble Bath by Maison Margiela Replica. And if you are anywhere near the clean girl aesthetic or the fragrance community online, you have almost certainly heard of this one. And I placed it as fifth deliberately, not because it's less important, but because I wanted you to experience what's possible in the niche clean fragrance first before we land on the anchor. Because bubble bath is the anchor. It is the reference point. It is what people mean when they say they want to smell clean. The Fragcom has an interesting relationship with bubble bath. Some people find it almost too simple, too linear, not enough development. And every time I see that take, I want to very gently disagree. Because simplicity done this well is genuinely difficult. And most fragrances that try to do what bubble bath does simply don't. The notes include aldehydes, lemon, coconut, lavender, jasmine, and a beautiful white musk. And what you get is exactly what the name promises. Something warm, soapy, skin close, clean. Like stepping out of the most perfectly drawn bath. The warmth is still sitting on your skin. You may think that including a widely known, easily available fragrance in a niche list is slightly cheating. However, I would say that understanding why bubble bath works, really understanding, is what makes everything else on this list make sense. It is the benchmark, and benchmarks matter. I clearly remember giving this to someone who had never really been into fragrances before, and she sprayed it, held her wrist to the nose, and went completely quiet, and then said, I want to smell like this every day, which is honestly the whole review. And now, the last one. And I want to prepare you because this one is going to challenge the premise of this entire video. On paper, it technically does not belong here. And I'm going to make a case why it absolutely does, so stay with me. And this is where the clean girl grows up. So this is Feather Supreme by Jusbox. And it is a 2017 release from this Italian niche house that bases every single fragrances on a music icon or defining a musical moment. And Feather Supreme is their love letter to weightless, feather light freedom. I really love this concept so much, and I think it shows completely the juice. Now, this is a chypre. I know. A chypre wildcard on a clinger list. And I want to acknowledge that immediately because I know what the fragrance instinct is going to be. It's mossy, complex, dark, and earthy. That is the traditional chypre. But Feather Supreme does something genuinely different. The notes include apple, bergamot, tuberose, jasmine, ylang ylang, patchouli, and musks. And what Jusbox has done is take all the structure of the chypre and run it through a clean, luminous filter. The bergamot and the musk keep everything bright and transparent, and the patchouli, the patchouli is so quiet and so restrained that it just adds to the more subtle earthiness without going too dark or too heavy. It is a clean fragrance with a backbone, with an actual personality. You may think that anything with patchouli or a chypre structure simply cannot belong in the clinger category. However, I would say the most compelling version of this aesthetic has always been the one that doesn't look like it's trying too hard. And the fragrance that has quiet complexity is always more interesting than the one is just clean and nothing else. So, Feather Supreme is a clinger fragrance for people who have grown into themselves. I clearly remember wearing this to a work event a few months ago, and someone came up to me genuinely puzzled and said, "Yeah, you smell so clean, but also somehow interesting." And that is the most perfect description of what Feather Supreme does. You know, like sunlight through white silk curtains in a room with very, very good music. Spring and summer, but honestly year round signature scent. And one of the most underrated clean fragrances I have ever encountered in 5 years of collecting perfumes. Test it, and if you love it, please come back and tell me. So, 6 fragrances: one luminous everyday, one cosmic crisp, one a powdery surprise, one prismatic Italian discovery, the soapy classic that started the whole conversation, and one wildcard chypre that I still believe it belongs here completely. And now I have 2 questions for the comments, and I genuinely really want to know what you think. Question 1: bubble bath. Is it still the definitive clinger fragrance reference in 2026? Or has niche perfumery produced something that has genuinely replaced it? Because I go back and forth on this honestly, and I feel like this comment section is going to be beautifully divided about it. Now, question number 2: can a chypre, even a clean, luminous, restrained chypre like Feather Supreme, actually belong in the clinger canon? Or does the aesthetic have a hard border that complexity is simply not allowed to cross? I have made my arguments, now I want yours. I will be in the comments, I read everything on this channel, and I cannot wait to have this conversation. If I introduced you to even one new house you never heard of, then my job is completely done. If you are new, then welcome, subscribe if you want more of this kind of content, because this is genuinely what we do here all the time. And if you are already part of this community, you know, I love you and I will see you in the next one. And until then, just keep on smelling good and feeling good. Bye bye.